What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Augmented Reality Podcast. This is Ash for the Triple S League. I'm here, as always, with Cybsidian.
Hello, hello.
And it is, November. When
It's
did it become November?
Up here too. It's very cold out here right now.
It's November 8th, 2017. This podcast brought to you by the Triple S League. Check out our YouTube channel for game guides, game reviews, game comedy, and all kinds of gaming-related stuff. I'm detecting a theme here. We are all about video games.
Mostly games. We talk about movies, too, from time to time.
Oh, yeah. Anything.
And there's some pretty good ones coming up and out right now. I'm hearing good stuff about Thor, and I cannot wait for the new Star Wars movie, because the new Star Wars movie will, I feel, set up the rest of the Star Wars movies that we get, if it'll actually be worth watching. It'll all boil down to the stuff that they set up in this episode, because if you look at all of the prequel stuff, if you look at all of the history on Vader and what was supposed to happen with bringing balance to the Force, you're not supposed to have the Sith versus the Jedi. The Force is not polarized to one side or the other. There's still those factions, there. But if you look at the old stuff, like the stuff that they said that it's not canon anymore, that they removed, that's what that was. And one of our fans actually sent me some stuff to watch on it, and it was really interesting. And it brought me back to the old Republic games, and it brought me back into the history. And so I'm really excited to see what they do with it, but I'm also quite on edge, because I feel that if they're going to keep playing the whole dark versus light, the extreme polar opposites against each other, that's just going to hamper the story down the road. And I feel quite strongly that they really shouldn't do that, that they really should try and focus on more of a central story and utilize these streams when they have to. But because it's been played out, and because it ultimately ruins the direction that the story had, and the reason why I'm such a big Star Wars fan, or why I was such a big Star Wars fan growing up, because I grew up in the age of the post-trilogy content. All the books and the games, Dark Forces, and all of the stories of the characters, where it wasn't polarized anymore. It was much more centered, and it was even the story about the Force in and of itself, and what it is, and like what direction was happening to it, all that stuff.
I'm not sure your average fan has been that immersed in all of the expanded universe content, though.
Well, no, a lot of them were. That's
a lot were. I'm not saying.
That's why they were so upset when Disney basically said, yeah, all that stuff that was written, that's all non-canonical now, and we're just rebooting it. And if they're rebooting it because they're like, dark versus light, extreme, polar opposite, if they're going to feed into that, I don't think it's going to go very far. I think it's going to peter itself out.
Well, it's definitely a safer option in terms of, appealing to a broader audience, because they're not making the new movies for the hardcore fans who are into all the expanded universe stuff. They're making it for a very general audience.
Yeah, but that's my point, is you'll never rise above when shooting for generalities and mainstreams. If you do what's not normal, if you do what's counterculture, if you do what's not expected, that's how you make yourself a legend. I mean, you don't always guarantee
it's a risk,
a regular paycheck. It is, it's a bit of a
it's a financial risk, and they're gambling with millions upon millions of dollars if they go that way. Billions probably. I mean, I was talking about this actually with my family just over the weekend. My sister was saying that she just recently watched Force Awakens, and said she just didn't. She found the story bland, like a total rehash of A New Hope, which was a very common complaint.
Yeah,
I feel that was somewhat deliberate. Like they went the very safe route with the story, because they really had to make sure this was going to be a hit. They had to make sure it was going to work. I feel that they are taking more risks now. I mean, you look at Rogue One, that's completely different than anything we'd seen before out of the Star Wars, at least the movie. The movie series. We'd never seen something like Rogue One before, just a standalone story, had nothing to do really with the Skywalker lineage, all kinds of things different, no opening crawl, it was darker, grittier. So they are taking more risks now, and there's going to be a Han Solo, Origins
I
movie.
didn't like that there wasn't a crawl. I think the crawl should be there because all Star Wars movies should have a crawl. Like that's just my opinion. But anyways, and I will, before we move on, just as a real quick thought is and you're right, could be that they are now breaking from it. They've set it up, and now they're going to go into a bit of a different direction. So it's not just a clone repeat, rehash, going over and over the things that they've gone over and over before. The small ragtag team destroys large object. Small ragtag teams destroys large object. It just keeps on going, and it's the same thing. It's the same thing again and again and again and again. But maybe with Luke saying that the Jedi need to end, maybe that is showing the signs of they are moving in a new direction, because the Jedi ideology is extremely oppressive to the Jedi. It brings freedom to supposedly the galaxy, but it does bring a lot of wars and a lot of battles and a lot of going back and forth. So
they mucked it up in the prequel trilogy, though. That's the problem. That's where
there was a lot of things in that prequel trilogy that they that they really screwed up, and they shouldn't not necessarily have done. But yeah.
What I mean though is that in the original trilogy, of movies, the Jedi it was talked about. They fought in the Clone Wars. They were these warriors for peace and freedom. They had this sort of, they were these freedom fighters. And in the prequels, it just got into this whole thing about this prophecy about, bringing balance to the Force. Of course, they never really explained what that means in the movies. And then Jedi are forbidden to love, and there's, and then they just fly around the galaxy on diplomatic, they're diplomats.
There is no passion. There's peace.
It's
yeah.
It mucked it up. I'm of the opinion that Disney should remake the prequel trilogy, keep everything that everybody loved about it, the good characters that we want to keep as part of the canon, all of that stuff. But no Jar Jar, no midichlorians. Let's just do it right. Do the Darth Vader origin story. Then
I don't want them to waste their time on that stuff. I'd rather them focus on new, interesting stories and content.
Well, I think you could really the stories, there is so much room to reinvent that story and make it so much more interesting and better.
There's a lot of really good content that was in the expanded lore stuff that they cut out that was you've got the Kyle Katarn story for me that was brilliant. And it was really well done, but unfortunately we'll never get that now. Luke's wife, his love interests through the stories, that's another really amazing story that I was really I really enjoyed. And of course that's gone now. There's no chance of that happening now because they've completely moved past it, and they've really blown past it hardcore. So it all depends.
But we don't know what happened. There's a large span of time before Luke goes into his self-imposed exile.
Yeah, but now I don't want to see it because they're already past it. I don't want them to rehash it. I don't want them to go back and make a prequel for the post trilogy. That would just set this horrible habit of them making a prequel for their skipping a bunch of stuff, doing a trilogy, and then going back and filling that gap up with stuff. It's well, you know how it's going to end. Of course you know how it's going to end. And I really think that that's not good. Anyways.
Yeah, very much looking forward to the new Star Wars movie as well. So, some interesting stuff in the news this week. WoW has esports gotten big. I was just watching the opening ceremonies for the League of Legends World Championships. Wow. Musical performances and dancers and a freaking CG dragon that flies around the arena. Of course, it was augmented reality, so you had to, I guess, have a device to see it, or you could only see it if you were watching the stream feed. But the amount of effort that went into these opening ceremonies for this World Championships of League of Legends, and the place was packed. It was just an absolutely packed arena. Unbelievable.
They've been, especially in Korea, they've been selling out arenas for decades. So that's not surprising. What is surprising is they really put a lot of effort. They had, dozens and dozens of dancers on stage. They had a whole bunch of choreographed stuff. They had a lot of music. And wow, that one girl can sing whilst also bending over really well. There's lots of stuff going on, and the augmented reality dragon was, I thought it was well done, that's for sure. The shadows on the thing, the only thing that they didn't have is crowd interaction. And this also brings the point of how augmented reality will start to become a pillar in the live performance industry. And we're starting to see the first kind of like rumblings of how well it can be utilized, and that the technology is there and it's getting better.
Well, it might get to the point where you go to an event like that and they just hand you a cheap pair of glasses as you're entering the stadium, like they give you 3D glasses when you go to see a movie.
Yeah.
So you can watch all of the AR stuff, but also perhaps you'll be able to just see the playing field on a big field right in front of you. That would be pretty neat.
We also had BlizzCon this week, and at BlizzCon, they had, speaking of finals and championships, they had the Overwatch Championship. And what was really interesting and very noteworthy on this is that it was the underdog versus like the reigning champions. And South Korea's been, they're basically unstoppable. They were this time. They did win. The underdog was Canada, of all places. They beat out everybody else to get to the finals. I'm impressed. Also, what was nice to see is some of the reactions from the Canadian fans. They were so very Canadian. One of them had a sign that said "sorry" with an exclamation mark. So that was, oh, sorry for shooting you in your face there. Sorry about that. Sorry.
Canadians are Irish now? Okay.
I was trying to go for Newfoundland. Newfie. How do the Newfies do it?
I'm not even going to try.
Oh, sorry, I had to shoot you in your face. Oh, no, see, yeah, I've gone back to Irish now. But it was really good to see. It was really fun. It was more entertaining to watch, definitely. It was really entertaining to watch. As a gamer, now this brings up an issue that I want to ask, and I'm really curious. I really am very curious as to what the people out there think on this particular issue. When it comes to esports, the biggest complaint that I hear from people who are not gamers, but they are avid sports watchers, is that the action is just too fast. That a lot of the action, especially with Overwatch, it's dizzyingly fast. Like, it's insanely fast. Now, I know that gamers enjoy this. I know that most gamers like it, and Dota just did this thing where they did, Dota Super Speed, and it was hugely well received. But what I hear from non-gamers or people who are not avid players of that particular genre, they might be gamers, they might play a lot of FPSs and stuff like that, but they don't enjoy or play the high-speed, super fast Twitch stuff as much as others. Is that going to hurt the industry, or is that just what it is? And that's the question. Is this non-stop, super fast, one-shot kills, is that what makes gaming enjoyable to watch? Or should we be looking at something that is far more tactical, a lot slower? Are we looking for football, or are we looking at kind of a really fast form of basketball?
Both are very popular.
Yeah.
But are there a lot of people who want to... How many esports fans do you think there are who aren't gamers, or who don't actually play that game that they're watching?
It's a very small number. I believe the last stat I heard on it, it was around like 20%.
Okay, so
roughly
about a fifth. So I think that's pretty common. Most sports or games that you watch, even speedrunning, which is, something I'm more a fan of, it's much more fun and much more entertaining when you actually know what's going on. And I think that really is going to play into it. So most of your audience are going to be gamers, and probably people who play that game. And so they'll be able to follow the action better, and they'll probably appreciate the really fast action stuff a little more. But I think there's something to be said for a slower strategic type pacing as well. I mean, it gives you more different modes of game to watch. So even if it's slow and even if it's more slow and strategic, I think it is going to be more entertaining for people who know what's going on. Can you imagine watching a chess game if you don't know how to play chess, if you've never played chess?
Yeah.
Would be like, what exactly am I watching?
It also feeds into this concept where you can't force an esports game. You can't create an esports game without having people interested in the game.
Mm-hmm.
This was brutally experienced with Firefall. Firefall was a game that had been working. It had such a huge initial interest in the game. There were so many people interested in that, and then when the creators and the devs looked at that, they said, "Okay, cool. We're going to make we're going to take away the things that people are interested in, so that we can make an esports game." And the point, and I know because I was a little bit involved in the very early alphas with that, is that there was basically a think tank group that said, you will never get success of making an esports game if people don't play the esports game. And the person in charge at the time said, "That's ridiculous. I can make an esports game just based on people wanting to watch esports." And they're like, "No, people don't watch games that they don't play. Like they maybe watch someone playing it, like if you watch a streamer or if you watch a personality play a game, that's a little bit different than sitting down to watch an esports championship with nobody that you really know playing a game that you don't know. It's not the same thing. There's a big distinction in it." And for like 5 years, they tried, and it wasn't until they backed off and tried to go back to the original route that they finally got some traffic on the game, and then people actually started watching it, which proved the point that you can't have an audience watch a game without them having a vested interest in the game. Either they got to be watching somebody that they enjoy watching, like PewDiePie or whatever. You got to have that, or you got to have something that they're attached to when it comes to the game, when it comes to the lore.
These things need to happen organically. Like,
yeah,
all of the sports, the big sports we have, you didn't have a boardroom full of directors saying, "Okay, we're going to sit down here and invent the new sport that is going to be, the big sensation that everyone's going to watch." No, these are just games that people have been playing. They're cultural things, and they're just, eventually the rules got standardized. It happens very organically. Those are the games people like to watch. Like, it's not, you can't just sit down and say, "Okay, this is going to be the next big esports thing." You can't even sit down and be like, "Okay, this is the next big game everyone's going to want to play." I mean, companies get it wrong all the time. Something that companies do sit down and discuss, however, and that they have gotten very good at doing, is separating their customers from their money, which is why the business exists. I mean, let's be honest. There's no companies exist to make money. They're not making video games for us as a charity out of the goodwill of their hearts. I mean, hopefully, if they're a good company, they do care about making a good product. They do care about what their fans want, and then we don't mind paying for it when they do that.
If you don't have money behind game creation, we end up getting 5 red balls and a deck of cards. That is a really old reference. If you get it, let me know. But and that's exactly it. They got to have money, but then you get companies that greed kind of overreaches their respect for the players, and that's what we have with Activision.
They've been coming under some scrutiny for some patents that they've filed for.
They've been patenting all kinds of good stuff
recently, having to do with new ways they can monetize content.
Yeah.
Now, they've come under scrutiny before because of a system that they patented, which was basically designed to really affect the way that matchmaking worked, depending on microtransactions and purchases you had made.
Yep, and now it's gotten worse, a lot worse, as we've uncovered what else they've been trying to patent and successfully patent. Now what they're doing is they're targeting playback videos, and we've also gotten a little bit more information that they are really aiming, if they implement this stuff, this is pay to win, 100%. They'll match a higher skilled player against lower skilled players or player who happens to not have a lot of microtransaction stuff. and they will match up somebody with them that just mops the floor with them. So what does this mean? Well, what this means is that if you're not doing microtransaction payments, then you're going to be put up against somebody who has a microtransaction advantage over you in the fact that their weapons are hitting you harder and better.
They've bought stuff
than what your current stuff. So that is play to win, period. But what a lot of people didn't really notice is that means that the players who are buying stuff, who are spending a lot of money, are being put into matches where their competition is undergeared and under experience. They've specifically said that they're putting veteran players with lower ranking players or new players in order to get those new players to go, oh my goodness, this guy's got so much stuff, and they want to emulate that, and so the only way they can emulate it is by buying a bunch of stuff. So this is where it's not just pay to win in the sense that you're getting better weapons. If you pay to win, your next series of matches are going to be you crushing somebody.
That has a second effect of reinforcing that buying of stuff, the reinforcing the behavior of engaging in the microtransactions and buying something. Like, so you buy an item, and the very next match you immediately you just clean up and kick everybody's ass. That's a very psychological thing. They're basically putting you in a Skinner box and saying,
yep,
here we're going to reinforce certain behaviors, which is something. I mean, games have been doing this for years, but where it gets really sketchy is that one of their patents is going to be targeting restreams of what happened, when you're watching replays of what happened in a game.
Yeah.
And focusing in on the things that they think you'll want to buy. And
this is all done on such a sneaky level, it's disgusting. So one of the things that they've been playing with is watch highlights of the day kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And they're going to identify your gameplay style. So if you're somebody who favors a sniper rifle and you favor, this kind of like sniper rifle support play style, they're going to show you a bunch of clips of the day, and you can't hear it, but I'm doing air quotes right now, clips of the day where they show you videos and clips of people playing your role, the role that you like to play the most, but being tricked out with a bunch of microtransaction stuff, and that person just laying waste to everything and being super awesome. And it's going to like constantly pop up with this was done with this weapon, and this was done with this add-on, and this was done with this, addition to this thing, and you can get this all by pressing this button right now. Press this button right now, and this is where it gets really dirty. If you bought the game with a credit card, if you bought the game with console currency, if you have a balance or if you have a credit card tied to that account, it will automatically, it won't even ask you to fill out or to confirm that you're spending real money on it. It's like, press this right now to get this item, and then you press this item and it'll buy you like a 10-pack of these microtransaction loot boxes, and you'll open up 10 of them and you'll be like, oh, I didn't get it. Well, now that you bought 10, and we see this in mobile gaming all the time, it's like, now if you buy this next pack, it's guaranteed to have one of these items in it. So you press it again, and before you know it, you've spent 3 times the cost of the game originally on a bunch of these microtransactions, and you have never been presented with the notification that you are doing so. That they're making it, how did they say it? An instant transaction, which means it's a single button is the only way you can translate that. Instant transaction means that you're prompted with a button, you press the button, you're charged, the money's taken out of your account or put on your credit card or whatever, and then suddenly you have the item in one button press. That means that there's not a little pop-up saying, are you sure you want to spend this money? Are you sure you want to, feed into this system of manipulation? And this whole thing with the video playbacks, they're trying to figure out a system in which, like, if a streamer is showcasing playbacks on their channel, that they can put in a pop-up ad. Like, this is the level of stuff that they're talking about, trying to figure out, and it's all built on a system where they're manipulating you in a pay to win scenario again and again and again and again, making it so that you don't have success, or you don't have fun, or you don't have an enjoyable time because you're not spending the money. Spend the money, and then you can have fun.
So they put you in a pay-to-win scenario. They turn their plays of the day or replays,
or highlights,
things, highlight streams into ads. So it's not actually, oh, here's stuff we think you'll want to see. No, it's here's stuff we think you'll want to buy.
Yeah.
And it's loot boxes.
It's random loot boxes with like specialized loot. Like I said, you see this all the time in these little mobile gaming ones where it's like, if you spend $100, then you'll get a guaranteed of this item. It's like $100 on a mobile. Are you kidding me? Like, this is ridiculous.
That is the gaming bullshit trifecta right there. That's all three of the worst things about gaming, all in one nice little crap-smeared package, fresh from the cow's colon. It's disgusting. That is disgusting.
It's absolutely disgusting, and they're not targeting adults. I should make this quite clear. This hasn't been proven. This is what I'm hearing from people in the industry. This is not targeting your average 25-year-old gamer. This is targeting your average 13, 14, and 15-year-old gamer who happen to have their parents' credit card on their machine. Because you can make a lot of money off of that. Some of the biggest bills sent out for mobile gaming were sent out for games that 5 and 6 and 7-year-olds were playing, or that 14 and 15-year-olds were playing, who didn't understand that what they were buying, the in-game currency that they were buying, had any real-world money connected with it. There was this one lady who her son spent $150,000, I think, on in-app purchases, and he didn't understand that he didn't understand that he was buying something with real-world currency. He just thought he found a button that gives you bonuses in the game, and you turn around and now whether or not that's the truth, that's what the claim was. So
I'd say depending on the age of the kid.
Yeah. If you're 15, I expect you to realize that money has a cost, but maybe you didn't. Yeah. But in the case of like the 5, 6, and 7-year-olds, and most parents should know this at this point, is you turn off microtransactions before you give your phone to your kid.
Yeah, absolutely. You remember being a kid and your parents are like, oh, we don't have the money for that. Well, why don't you just go get some from the bank then? Like, just not having that. You kind of get it, but you don't quite get it.
You get the parent who's like, you think money grows on trees? No, I don't think money grows on trees. If I thought money grew on trees, I wouldn't be in here asking your cheap ass for some money. But at any rate.
That's so great. It's very skeevy. Yeah. I mean, it ruins the spirit of gaming. I mean, it's like, I don't know why they think this is a good idea. You're in the age of the internet. People are going to figure this out. And I suppose they want this to become the new normal, but is that really going to happen? Are people really going to?
I don't think so. I think that, let us know. Let us know in the comments. Do you think that any of these practices would work on you? If you realize that you are being manipulated in a very controlled, very scientific way by a company to, spend upwards to $200 to $300 on a game that you already spent $80 on, is that going to make you happy? Is that going to make you more loyal to that company, to that brand? Or are you going to get really annoyed with it and walk away? Let us know. I'm very interested in knowing what everybody has to think on that.
And that about wraps it up for the Augmented Reality Podcast for this week. So thank you so much for listening. If you appreciate this weekly content, please check out our Gawkbox link in the description. It's a great way to support content creators that doesn't cost you a thing. All you do is install an app on your phone and play some games, and you can support your favorite content creators by doing that. We also have a Patreon available if you're interested in going that route. Don't forget to like and sub, and we will talk to you next week.